Welcome back to the show, Respectfully Inspired with Aussie Films. Today I'm here with Kasey Wakasa, also known as Wakasi. He is an artist out of San Diego. I was going to just try to describe the art that you make, but I don't know, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Kasey Wakasa. I'm currently living here in San Diego, and I create laser cut custom acrylic paintings and an assortment of other art. Yeah. But my main focus is utilizing the laser cutter to create and use it for precision technology and to create these stencils and any sort of design I want and turn that into art, wall art mainly. But I have done jerseys. I've now put my art on different pieces of merch to try to build the brand and grow as an artist.
So, just so you guys can get an idea of what those laser cut art pieces might look like, we have one up there in the Mummy. What's it called?
This is the Pharaoh art piece. A fan favorite for sure. People love the Pharaoh. I've done some koi fish that they really like. And then I do these large scale butterflies that can be around 6 by 4 feet that are all cut out. Maybe you could take some B-roll of pieces, but
we'll definitely put some B-roll in right here. Mm-hmm. And then you also have the surfboard here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so the surfboard was spray painted, and again, it uses the laser cut stencils to get like the SD logo, to get like the hot air balloons, butterflies, and then the rest is spray painted just kind of freehand.
So, question, are the laser machines expensive?
Yes, they are.
Where do you get one?
I got mine. I have a Chinese laser, and it was through a U.S. middleman who is kind of like the technician that will sort of alleviate that process and help with any technical issues. But typically lasers, especially a large laser cutter, can go from like $5,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
So
that's an investment.
It is a heavy investment, but they're well worth it because you can use it as a service and offer products, or you could offer products to people, or you could offer it as a service. And a lot of people will come to you and say, hey, I need these parts cut on this material. So
do you offer it as a service?
I do not currently. So
interesting. So before I get any further, I want to start off with my why behind the show, which is I want to inspire people to invest in soul wealth. So most people measure success by wealth metrics, which are your money, possessions, achievements, and or status. And the goal of my podcast is to change the way people measure success to relationships and memories, which I really like the idea of interviewing an artist. You're probably the first physical artist I've interviewed because I think that art somewhat reflects memories. And a couple of weeks ago, I went to Moab, Utah, and I saw some pyroglyphics. So for the people who don't know what pyroglyphics are, they're like caveman, hominid, old drawings.
Right.
And I was asking myself, is this just like a drawing that someone did for fun, or does it have a deeper meaning? Because all these historians are trying to pull out the deeper meanings and stuff.
Right.
And I guess I won't know, but I want to ask you as
it's always tough. I mean, I do believe art has been used as a form of storytelling and, you know, telling their story somehow, some way in any sort of format, right? There's obviously film, there's music, there's physical wall art pieces. So the hieroglyphics are definitely, in my opinion, or when I think about it, and maybe this is just because the tour guides tell you, it's the stories of the people who used to live there and what they kind of went through. You see, there's the family, the mother, daughter, and the animals. But I definitely think art is a form of storytelling, and that's why people love it and become emotionally attached to artwork, because they are inspired by the story or moved by a piece emotionally. And so I think that's kind of where I see art and how to use it for good, to continue the story, to keep speaking our history almost, or writing our history.
So you had a art piece that you made for an auction in San Diego, which said, "Don't feed the turtles."
Yes.
And that has quite an obvious meaning because it's like, it's for ocean preservation. It's clearly telling you, don't pollute the ocean.
Right.
Don't harm the turtles. But when you make art, do you often have a deeper meaning that you don't even share with people? You're just like, oh, this is how I would say this piece is represented if someone really asked me.
Sometimes most of my work is commission based. So people come to me with ideas, say, hey, I want a butterfly, or I want some wings for, my mom who just passed, or something like that. And so those have a little bit less meaning. They're a bit more customer focused. But that I do make some original artwork that are more meaningful to me and have maybe some deeper meaning, especially like, for example, this pharaoh piece, is inspired by my travels in Egypt and kind of reminds me of that time and the beauty of Egypt and what I saw and experienced. And so in this form, I'm telling my story and trying to share it with others. And there's another piece over there that's this mirage, and I actually etched right on top of the resin. And there's a bunch of different symbols, and there's actually some hieroglyphics in there as well. And I kind of wanted to tell the story of Arizona and the desert, and kind of like throw in a lot of different stories within it so that people can kind of look at it and see different things as they continue to look at it and enjoy it.
So going back to Egypt.
Sure. Let's go back.
Egypt's almost like a mystical place that you read about in books and stuff. It's a place you read about in books that very few people in the United States go and visit.
Right.
What was it like in reality?
I mean, Egypt is a hectic country.
Yeah.
The traffic is insane. There's like no rules on the road. Like everyone is honking, and it is crazy. But then, outside of the city, you go and all of a sudden there are pyramids, these large scale pyramids. There's these deep tombs that you can go under and see the carvings, the mummies and the history before. And it's just mind blowing to see these, monuments out in the desert. And you question, how were they built? How did this happen? And you hear about it in the history books, but it's hard to believe it until you see it. And then it's even hard to kind of believe it after you see it, because that's fun. Too crazy.
I heard that the pyramids, with all our technology that we have now, we wouldn't be able to recreate them.
Really? I mean, they are massive. Like each individual rock that they built upon are taller than me, and wider, and
like one stone
is
that's unfathomable.
They're big. They're very big.
It doesn't feel that way when you
look at the photos. It's hard to tell, and you can walk up close to it, and I guess you could theoretically climb it. Someone has, but they're insane. It's hard to imagine how they could be built, how they would be built, or how they were.
So people have climbed them.
I think I did see an Instagram or a TikTok where some guy climbed up to the top and was able to take some cool footage, like a cool selfie at the top of the pyramids.
So beyond Egypt, though, you've spent a lot of time traveling. I think you just told me you went to Sri Lanka, some other places. I'm a huge advocate for traveling because I think it
definitely
goes back to the relationships and memories. Some of my best memories, best relationships were meant traveling. What impact has traveling had on you and your artwork?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up traveling with my family. They've taken us all around the world.
Yeah.
Some of the top places were Japan, Tanzania, Africa, Egypt, Europe, different places. And I would say it's definitely opened my eyes up to the various cultures out there, the, various and everything that's kind of a part of that, the art, the people, the food, and then when I come back here, you can kind of compare both realities and find gratitude in what you currently have, because you'll see people who have much, much less. But also there are people who have much more. And so there's never a, you can always strive for more, but at the same time, you're grateful for what you currently have because you see other people and the other cultures. And so I think that has had a huge impact on my life, how I've grown up, how I've matured, and I try to take it into my art.
That's interesting. When I was growing up, my mom would always take me to an orphanage in Tecate, Mexico, which is about a 2-hour drive from where we're at. And when as a kid, I didn't understand it. In fact, I hated Orphanage Day. We'd go like every other month, and I'd be like, "Oh no, not Orphanage Day," because I was a kid.
Yeah,
I didn't really understand it. It was hot. But looking back, there's a couple things that I realized, which was one, I'm so glad my parents did it because it made me a giving person. As I grew up, I understood the things and the way they raised me. But two, there was times with these orphanages, they don't have parents. They don't have, some of them don't have siblings. They don't have parents. They came from abusive childhoods. But they didn't even have a TV or an iPhone. But they're kicking around their like half blown up soccer ball. And they're happier than some kids I go to high school with.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, that was something I thought about when coming up with Soul Wealth is like, damn, all these people are chasing these achievements. What's the next thing? What's the next goal? And there's kids in Africa and kids in Mexico are kicking around a can as a soccer ball and they're as happy.
Exactly. And it's mind-boggling to see that, but I definitely think in America, all the materialistic goods, social media, it's hard not to compare and kind of see this lifestyle, this dream lifestyle that is like, whoa, that looks so fun, that looks so cool. But that there's a fake perception of that. And so I definitely think when you go to the orphanages and you see this, you can feel it that, man, they have nothing and yet they're still so happy because they're alive and they have at least some community, they have a rolled up hoodie that they tied together with some string and kick around as a soccer ball. So it's inspiring, honestly, to see it. And it does make you question, your idea of success and, what makes your life really worth living or what you're going to be kind of like thinking back on your deathbed. How did I live it? What's most important? So
we'll definitely get back to that deathbed topic at the end. It's funny you said that. I find it interesting that both you and your brother, I don't know, do you have other siblings?
I do. So I have an older brother. He's currently in med school in Chicago.
Okay.
And then I'm the second. Kelly is my younger brother who does YouTube.
Yeah.
And then we have a youngest sister who is currently playing soccer at Cal Poly SLO.
Okay. So maybe this will lessen the impact of the question I was about to ask. But because I only know you and your brother, Kelly, and I was going to say, you both ended up in art careers. He's a YouTuber, you're an artist. And I remember he had made a video visiting your childhood home in Northern California. Yeah. And there was like tree houses and trampolines and art. Do you think that your childhood, the way you were raised, your house affected you guys choosing a path of art?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat. I think yes, in the terms of that my parents were so supportive of everything we wanted to do. Yeah. And wanted us to go and explore and take risks and see what's out there. We grew up in a very we're only like a soccer family. We were always playing soccer, but my uncle liked to skateboard, so it kind of got me into skateboarding. It got Kelly into the skateboarding, and then eventually him into more like filmmaking, filming the skateboarding, and then beyond that. And so I think in that sense, it was that, that platform for us to kind of grow and explore our interests and see what we really want to do in this life. And I think we've all found our individual routes, which is interesting because we are all kind of going off of, a different route. Yeah. But I definitely think that had a huge impact, just being comfortable to express ourselves and try new things.
Well, that's like the cliche of Asian parents or immigrant parents is always like, I want my kid to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Sure.
And then also, I think to add on to that, I feel the biggest reason people don't pursue their dreams is because of their parents. Not because parents are these evil dream crushers, but
Right.
because your parents do everything for you your whole life.
Right.
And then they ask of you one thing, which is go to college, get a degree, and get a well-paying job.
Sure.
And so it almost feels disrespectful to choose like a path that's unstable.
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be, I think, even for us, that the pressure or like that drive to, I want to make my parents proud, you know, and somehow do that, you know, whether that be pursuing what they wanted us to pursue or, you know, being successful in our own sort of industry or way.
Wait, so were they were supportive of the path you chose before it was anything?
Yeah, I didn't start artwork until about 4 years ago when I graduated college. So up until then, I had just been playing soccer, and that's what we were kind of a soccer family. They loved it. They came to every one of my games, and they would be very supportive in whatever I wanted to do. And when I approached them and said, hey, I want to try to sell this art full time, you know, it's not going to be easy at first, obviously. So I need your support, honestly, if I want to try and make this dream a reality. And they were happy to do it just because they saw that I was passionate about it and I cared about it enough to where I wasn't just going to be like, oh, I'm going to try this for a little and then, you know, stop a few months in. Now it's been 4 years and I'm still kind of at it, and I'm not anywhere near where I want to be, you know, but I'm also very grateful for this journey that I'm on and the progress that I've made. So,
I mean, don't sell yourself short, though. I heard from the owner of this gallery we're in, which I'll put some B-roll because it's incredible, that he was saying that you were helping him build it and that you are a significant part of that process. And dude, your artwork's freaking incredible.
Thank you. Yeah.
I've accomplished a lot.
I definitely, you know, want to have high expectations, have high goals that I want to reach, and feel like, you know, this is the one life I get to do it. So what do I want to do? And I do want to build, and I've always had, I guess, a entrepreneurial type of mindset just because my dad, he's a dentist, runs his own practice, and I see that life. Oh boy.
We'll let this card back out.
Yeah.
I'll put some B-roll of all the nice cars every time one starts.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
They can watch it. So you said you started art 4 years ago, but oftentimes when people choose something, especially in like YouTube, I find that a lot of YouTubers, they start YouTube at a certain age, but they were always picking up the camera when they're young. When did you start art at any level? Was it just 4 years ago, or did you do it when...
No, technically, growing up, my uncle would build us skate ramps. And so me and my younger brother, Kelly, would build them with him. We've built a few half pipes, some like boxes, some quarter pipes. And so that kind of got me into the woodworking and working with my hands. And that's where I found that joy of working with my hands, and took that to Cal Poly, where I studied industrial technology. In that major, I learned about, you know, manufacturing machines and materials, supply chain, product design. And so I kind of took the parts that I liked into my career when I kind of discovered this product and started selling it.
Interesting.
So I have had the, like, you know, artistic drive, I guess, since I was young, even playing soccer. And when I quit playing soccer, what I felt I needed was this creative outlet. I felt like soccer was a creative outlet, because if you play, like, you can move the ball however you want. You can kind of be creative on the field. And so without that, I felt there was a lack and some sort of emptiness that it needed to be filled. And that's where I kind of fell in love with this art and kept going and dove in.
That's interesting to hear soccer as a creative art. It's almost like people who are really passionate about business for the purpose of business. Going back to being a modern day artist, it feels that physical art is the odd man out. So what I mean by that is, for all of time, that would have not been the case. But now with social media, it's all about like YouTube videos. It's all about Instagram posts. Even still image art is becoming
NFTs,
NFTs, digital art.
Definitely.
How do you feel social media has affected like being an artist? And do you feel like you're in the odd man out world, or what's your perception?
No, I think social media has been like a great platform for artists to really grow and be given the opportunity to be a full-time artist, because now we're able to freely reach thousands, potentially hundreds of thousands to millions of people off one single post, which is an incredibly powerful idea and like concept. I do think it's still not easy to just all of a sudden reach people. And so for the physical, wall art pieces, I still think in-person galleries, art shows, even flea markets or whatever are a great way to showcase your work. And so it is like, okay, well, there's a lot of digital art that, now social media is very saturated. There's a lot of different artists out there doing different things. And so it's easy to compare yourself to them, which can be detrimental, but at the same time helpful when you want to say, okay, wait, I'm not doing so bad, or okay, they're doing this, I'm going to try something similar. So I think ultimately it has helped as an artist, and I think without it, I would not be doing this.
Interesting. I have two questions. Do you find it frustrating having to play the game of social media, where like you might know I'm a good artist, but I'm not as good at making these viral clips of art?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think there's a lot of frustrating parts of running your own business. Because
you almost can't just be a physical artist now. You almost have to be a physical artist and a video creator, or at least a social media curator.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, comes along with the job. I think most artists I've spoken with kind of understand that you have to wear a lot of hats, and like, you're not just an artist, you're a marketing specialist, you're a sales rep, you're, a logistics operator, because you have to figure out how you're going to deliver the artwork after it's sold. And so there's so many different things you kind of have to learn and do. That's been a challenge, but for me, it's fun. I enjoy the challenge of learning new things. I enjoy the challenge of growing a business and potentially outsourcing more of those parts and focusing on the art, and finding that right balance that works for me.
Isn't that so true though? In any career, you think it's just going to be something. With podcasts, I thought, all right, you sit down, you have a conversation.
Right.
But then it's, okay, I need to use a distributor to get it on Apple and Spotify, and I can't compete with other podcasts unless I'm making clips now.
Right.
And I want to make sure everyone gets their moment, gets their art. And so it's so interesting how like you dive into something because you're passionate about one thing, passionate about conversation, or passionate about making art, and then you play all these other roles. But much similar to you, I find it quite enjoyable and quite fun.
Yeah. There's definitely parts of the process I do not enjoy, but
that's the thing too. I used to consume so much self-help content, and it would always say, work shouldn't feel like work. It should be what you love. Or it would always be like, don't do a job you hate. And I think I would take it too literally, where I'd be like, all right, I love YouTube, but I don't love editing. So therefore, and then I realized like there's no job in the world where you're going to love 100% of the process.
Yeah, I think so.
And I actually don't even know if it would be good to love 100% of the process, because I think that like it's much similar to how when you work out, you have that feeling afterwards. Like, would that feeling be so good if you were just having fun the entire workout?
Yeah.
It's like you need the perspective.
Right. I mean, it's like soccer for me was so much fun. It's such a fun sport. I still play it to this day. But to make it your full-time career, you have to grind. I mean, you gotta be so fit. You gotta be in the gym. You gotta be doing all these extra things outside of the pitch. There's no cutting corners, you know, and that's where you'll have that sense of accomplishment after, if you get through it. And so I think that's the same. It's the same sort of concept, or it's the same idea that, you know, you do have to sometimes get through the more mundane tasks to get that reward at the end, but you know you have to do it.
You're right. I have to ask you, because it's just striking my head right now. What are your thoughts on NFTs? And for the audience that doesn't know what an NFT is, and you can correct me, I believe it's when artwork is digitally attached to a cryptocurrency, so therefore it can live online and it can be associated to one person with no one being able to steal it or recreate it necessarily.
Yeah.
But what everyone thinks of, which I want to ask you about, is monkeys. Drawings of monkeys selling for millions of dollars that are now worth nothing. What is your thought on that?
I never really got into NFTs too deep. I never made one, never sold one.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like right now they've passed the trend essentially, but I think it was another great outlet for artists, musicians, artists of all kinds to sell their digital works and benefit from the royalties from it, because like, to build off what you were explaining, these are pieces of digital art that are one of one, you know, they're attached to that, you know, currency or some sort of certificate of authenticity. And so they cannot be reproduced. It can only be resold. And then if it's resold, you as the artist who created it can benefit and get some of the royalties, which is really nice, because if I were to sell a wall art piece, it would just be one sale and that's it, you know. And if they want to sell it, then, well, they would sell it and they would they would get the money, because there's no contract saying, oh, every single time you sell it, then I'm going to get a portion.
It's just too complicated to set up.
Yeah, but with the NFTs, it's doable, I guess.
I like your mentality, because I feel you've repeated a couple times in this podcast that a lot of people will say AI is so bad, AI is dangerous, AI, and I agree. I think it can be bad, it can be dangerous, but the only mentality you should take, in my belief, is that there's a tool. If I have a hammer, I can use it to hate you, or I can use it to build things.
Right.
And so you kind of just have to accept everything for it.
For sure. I mean, unfortunately, there's no going back, and you kind of have to learn and adapt. Like, I think being adaptable is a huge aspect.
With that being said, specifically the art that was selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's like a drawing of an ape that may have took you 10 minutes to draw.
Right.
What is your thought on that kind of art? Do you feel like it diminishes the value of real art, or do you think it just lives in its own world? Or
no, I think it does kind of live in its own world. I think a lot of art you'll see that sells for millions. You know, there's these big time artists that are in the museums and they sell for millions, and it's like, what are you talking about? This is a painting of a, you know, person or whatever.
It's just nothing. Blue.
Or, right. It's just the color blue. But that's where the art world is it's very subjective. It's, you know, it's how you brand yourself. It's, I see it as like an opportunistic way versus the like, I'm never going to make it. I see it as, well, if they could do it, I could do it. I can sell this piece for millions. You know, why not? Because it's all a perception, and it's a game, essentially. It's playing this art game or the world of business.
It's funny because you see so many of the patterns in the physical art world repeated in the YouTube world. So, for example, Mr. Beast's face gets views. If you just put his face on the thumbnail, now that he's done it so many times, he needs his face on every thumbnail. It's like a signifier of the video, it will get clicks.
Yeah.
No matter what, because his face holds value. And it's the same thing where, like, with Banksy or like a renowned artist, the second their name's on it, it almost doesn't matter if the piece is good or not. They've earned this like name value where people are just going to lay down money for it.
Right. It's designer goods, same sort of idea, luxury products, even cars, you know, it's the branding behind it that can turn a product from $1 to $1 million. So it's kind of understanding that and playing to your advantage, or trying to, and try to make, for me, my goal is to make my art, first of all, look really nice and make it something that people want to buy. And secondly, make the environment around it look supreme, you know, is spectacular and worth the money, not something out of my garage, you know, that was just put together that's like, well, whatever, but something that would look fitting in a museum.
So with all this talk, what does success look like for you? How would you define success for the modern day artist?
It's a good question. We were practicing this one in the car because we figured you might ask, but you know, it's subjective again, and I think definitely success, unfortunately for most people, is tied around wealth and having money and being successful in that way. But I definitely, if I were to put a general sort of idea behind it, I think it would be more like the freedom to live your life how you want to live it. And that, if that means I need money to go do these certain activities that I love, then you need to get there to feel successful. But if you are beyond happy kicking a ball around a field, you know, and helping other people, you know, impacting people's lives, I feel like that's another form of success. And I see that. So for me, when I am able to touch someone in terms of like, if my art moves them, if I'm able to achieve a milestone or use this art to get somewhere and bring me a new experience or somewhere I haven't been, that kind of opens my eyes, something I learned from, something that makes me feel, you know, I feel like that is success as well.
Dude, there's so many things coming to my mind that I want to talk to you about. I think success, it's interesting how you said you prepared for this, because that's what everyone thinks I'm going to ask, and it is what I ask it. It's funny because numeric success, it's like I would be lying if I said I didn't want this podcast to go viral and get 1 million views. Right. I think what I want to teach people is getting rid of the if-then statements. If I get 1 million views, then I will consider this podcast successful. If I get 1 million subscribers, then I will feel happy. So it's like, I have goals too. I want to get 1 million subscribers. I want to get 10,000 monthly listeners, but I'm not waiting for those things to fuel me. And the thing is, I think sometimes people need to experience monetary wealth or fame wealth to know that it's not what they actually want. Right. They need to get it. In the way I prove this, because I haven't experienced those things, so who am I to say? Sure. The way I prove it is that, why does every famous person, every actor end their career in philanthropy? It's like they accomplish everything and then they start their charity. They accomplish everything and then they start their mission. And it's because I feel like, and a topic I want to get into with you is giving versus getting. It's like everyone feels that they want something, and they've all heard like giving is better than getting, right? But they live as they want 1 million views, they want this success, this achievement, and then they end their career realizing, oh, it's so much better to give it away. Yeah. And you've made a lot of custom art for people. You made that longboard for that girl and that shoe for Marko, and I think you've had quite a career of giving. Could you speak about that?
Yeah, definitely. I love giving. I think it is much more fulfilling, you know, to be able to give and have them get that reaction, you know, that wow factor, that surprised, you know, sort of emotion. It's tough to kind of put it into words how that feels, but it is, I'm sure most people have experienced it at one point or the other, where they're their acts directly impact someone else's life, and that feels so good, versus like getting. And I think for me, it's like, yes, I'm in the same boat. I want to get the money, get the wealth. Yeah. But it's not for me. It's not necessarily for me. It's for others. It's for my circle of people that I want to help them. I want their lives to be easier in any way I can, and if that means helping them financially or, any other ways, then I'm happy to try to do that, because then, I don't know, it's feel better than receiving.
An interesting statistic that I just found out, that by economic class, poor people give a higher percentage of their money than rich people do.
I mean, I believe it.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, yeah, America's messed up like that, kind of, and a lot of people, a lot of the, I would say, wealthier people understand the tax laws better and are able to, purchase more assets and in turn get less hit with the taxes. So
the thing that's coming to mind right now is like people making Instagram reels or YouTube shorts where they'll give a homeless dude like $100.
Right.
They'll get 10 million views and they'll be profiting like $1,000 on it. That happens less now. That was a trend,
that was
4 or 5 years ago. But it's funny. That's what I think of when I think of rich people giving. Not that there's a bunch of rich people who give freely.
I mean, that's for like kind of an alternative reason or whatever, where it's
like you're only giving to gain.
Yeah, right. It's giving in a selfish sort of reason because you want to gain. It's almost like if you fuck up, if you do something bad and you want to go apologize to that person, but it's been months or whatever, you're only doing it for yourself, really. Like they've already moved on, but you're kind of like, oh, I need to apologize, but it's really for your own soul to feel less guilty.
That also raises another form of giving, which I'm thinking about is like, might get a little deep here, but my brother's a really bad alcoholic, and my dad has seen the ways that he's poorly spent money that has been given to him. And so now my dad, who's a very giving person, doesn't like to give to homeless people anymore because he says they're just going to go spend it on alcohol or drugs.
Right.
But I will make the argument to my dad that it doesn't matter where they spend it. You would like them to go spend it on a hot meal. You'd like them to spend it on getting a job, but you almost giving is for yourself in the way that it's like correcting your heart posture.
Yeah.
It's like you don't control what that person goes and does with their money.
Right.
So does that mean you should just never give anyone money?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's definitely a tough question, and it's it's an ethical one, obviously. So
yeah, I think from a God perspective, it makes sense to just give to give, and you don't expect anything.
I mean, you just never know.
Yeah,
you could give to the homeless person, they could go shoot up, and then all of a sudden they come up with the next brilliant idea that cures cancer. I mean, you just never know, right?
Actually,
not that that's gonna happen, but
I want to share a story on generosity with you that it's gonna take a minute, but
sure,
it's so related to what we're saying, and I read it on Facebook, so I don't know the validity of this,
right?
But it would be quite a wild story to just come up with. So this guy, his dad passed away. And he went to the grave and he left a flower on his dad's grave. Every Sunday, I believe, he would go leave flowers on his dad's grave. And there was a grave next to his dad's, who after a couple of months...
I've read this story.
After a couple of months, he realized that no one was leaving flowers on that grave. So he said, I don't know why, but I'm going to leave flowers on that grave.
Yeah.
Whoever this is, I'll leave. So now every Sunday he brings flowers for his dad and flowers for this new grave. And then after a month or so of leaving flowers on the new grave, he goes, I wonder who this person is. I'm going to look them up.
Right.
He looks them up. He finds out this person he's been leaving flowers on their grave for killed his whole family.
Yeah.
And then killed himself.
Right.
And he goes, oh my gosh, why would I ever give this person flowers? I messed up.
Right.
So he feels bad, kind of like giving the homeless person who goes and buys alcohol. So he goes, all right, I'm going to make it up. I'm going to find their relatives that he killed, and I'm going to leave flowers on their graves.
Right,
Which is so funny because this is all just his intrusive thoughts. Like,
Yeah.
no one's making him do this. I don't even think he was talking to anyone about it. So he goes to their relatives and he starts leaving flowers on their graves. And then one day he goes and leaves flowers on the graves, and when one of the relatives that is alive goes, "What are you doing? Why are you leaving flowers on my brother's grave?"
Right.
And he goes, "I can explain. There's a whole long story. Why don't we get dinner and I'll tell you about it?" And she says yes to getting dinner.
So good.
And then 2 years later, she says yes when he asks her to marry him.
Yeah.
So
Insane. I mean, what a story. If that is true, that is an incredible story.
but what it teaches me is that him putting the flowers on the serial killer's grave is like us giving the money to the homeless person who goes and spends it on alcohol. It's like, you didn't know.
Right.
But in the end, I felt God rewarded him for his generosity.
Right.
That's literally how he founded his wife.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like the posture of your heart is much more important than...
Yeah, it's your intentions. It's,
Yeah.
it's knowing that. It's
Yeah.
supporting, she was just in Thailand, so we were talking about the elephant sanctuaries and how, some of them are ethical, some of them are not as ethical, but we're still kind of supporting. But it's kind of a tough question.
It's hard to do your research and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a Banksy story about how we were just talking about face value. So like Mr. Beast has face value.
Right.
Banksy has face value.
Right.
Where he sold his art, his real art, as he wasn't the one. He hired someone to sell it on the streets in New York as fake replica art. Mm-hmm. And the pieces sold for, he probably sold, he offered to sell 100 pieces. He probably sold 5 for $60. And then the next day on Instagram, he reveals that they're his, and they resell immediately for $60,000. What do you think about that phenomenon?
I think it goes back to the marketing, the luxury product sort of. Yeah, I mean, it's the face value, it's the name.
Yeah.
I mean, anything with Mr. Beast, is going to be good. Like, it's crazy, but it's that level of quality that they've reached, and that world-renowned name that they can, anything they put their name on is the stamp of approval that it's authentic, or that it's, kind of up of that quality. And so I unfortunately need to play into that with my own career and artwork, and try to continue building my name so that I can afford to live.
It's so interesting, that idea of the value of a personal brand, because the more and more I look into it, the more I see it everywhere. It's in the podcast space. If you swipe through podcast clips on Instagram and someone lands on my clip, they might watch if the content is really interesting. But if they land on a Joe Rogan clip, they're going to reverse. They're going to say, all right, I want to watch because Joe Rogan's face is right here. And then based on if the content sucks, I will leave. So it's like a different, people come here and they're like, entertain me now. You have very little chance to survive. But then when they land on a seasoned podcaster's face, they want to watch it through. And it's, the value of a personal brand is just so much higher than it's ever been.
Yeah, it's very important. Everyone you meet will ask, "Oh, do you have an Instagram?" And that's how they judge you. Based off that Instagram a lot of the time. So it is funny, and I've spoken about it with my girlfriend, and how we live 2 lives, one in the real and one on the line, and they're so different, and yet I don't know. Like it's weird.
Dude, I have a couple friends in the self-help space who literally talk about Instagram like it's a resume. They go, if you have a bad Instagram, you're harming yourself because it's like if you were to show up to a job with a horrible resume. Right. But now for so many careers, especially our careers, Instagram is your resume.
Yeah, definitely.
But then it goes to like, all right, are you portraying a fake version of yourself? And it's all about being real, and authentic's the big buzzword now.
Yeah, right.
What do you think of the idea of Instagram as a resume?
I mean, for me, it has it is for me, it's a portfolio, right?
Portfolio is a nice word.
It's sold pieces for me, which is great. And so I care, unfortunately, a lot about the look of the Instagram. As far as more of a personal brand, I'm much less in that. I feel like it's an age group thing almost too. Like, I'm 27. I didn't really grow up with social media around. And so it didn't really come until I was in, maybe high school is when like Snapchat first came out. And so I didn't really care much about it. I was, I'll go play soccer. I don't need to post photos of myself. But now it's much more relevant in our lives, and it is your resume, it's your portfolio, and it's part of you.
I feel like running the Soul Wealth brand and everything I advocate for, it feels off-brand to come say that your Instagram is your brand, but it is. And even I had one of my friends who was a quality friend who will give me advice and give me feedback. She had told me, you should change your Instagram photo because it looks like a frat photo and it doesn't represent like a Soul Wealth brand. And I was like, and I looked at it, I was like, damn, she's right.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
No, your first perception of they'll meet you and then they'll look at your Instagram, or they won't, and they'll look at your Instagram first. And sometimes it's hard to kind of have that outsider perspective to be like, oh wait, what sort of vibe is this giving off?
Bro, in LA, I've been in conversations where I'll go to a creator meetup or whatever, and within 15 seconds, someone will ask me for my Instagram, which is already weird. It just seems like weird to go from, hey, what's your name? What's your Instagram?
Right.
And then they'll look at it and the whole like demeanor of the conversation will change based on their like looking at my Instagram.
They'll look at your followers. How many followers do you have? And then they'll judge you and me. Oh, wait, this guy's, not big. Or, whoa, you have over 100,000 followers? Okay, I'll talk to you, and it's kind of a weird status thing. It's probably a weird ego sort of thing too.
But another interesting phenomenon that I've had is I've had people who have millions of followers show me their Instagram in LA, but it doesn't represent them, so they'll feel the need to clarify something. They'll be like, oh, what's your Instagram? And I'll show them mine, and they'll show me theirs, and I'll see 1 million followers, but they make dance videos on TikTok, and they'll be like, by the way, I make dance videos, don't worry about it. Right, it's like they feel this need to clarify it, and that's where I come in with the Soul Wealth perspective is I don't want to create content that I will play the game. And I know that my Instagram is a resume, but I don't want to create content where I feel like I need to justify it to other people, because then what it's saying is that that's not me.
Right.
And I don't want to do anything that's not me. But I find it interesting too, on the other hand, where we'll look at people with lots of followers or subscribers and we'll think that we'll put them on a pedestal. We'll think, oh, that person has too many followers to associate with me. Mm-hmm. Or they have, like I had a friend who just did an interview with FaZe Rug and I was like, oh, have you texted him since? And he's like, nah, like I don't want to overstay my welcome. And to a degree, I agree with him. But to another degree, I'm like, we just assume that these people with followers have a ton of friends because they have followers.
Yeah, right.
But some of them are the most lonely people on earth. And I think it's because of that phenomenon, where it's because they feel unapproachable by the average person.
Yeah.
And they're not constantly hanging out with other famous people. They have their small group. And I think that actually isolates a lot of those people.
Definitely. I think I can relate, and I see it with Kelly.
Yeah.
I've been able to get a very firsthand experience of watching him really, explode and grow and like all of a sudden, he's getting stopped at airports. Yeah. Anywhere in public we go, he'll get stopped. Him and Ashley will just get stopped and say, oh, can we get a picture? And it's crazy for us to see because people are putting him up on that pedestal.
Yeah.
And I think it was tough for him around the time I used to live with him in Long Beach. Yeah. And then he went off to Arizona to get like his college experience for about a year. and then he went to New York, and that's where, like, in New York, he was really, I think, and even throughout that process, looking for his group.
Yeah.
You know, his group of friends that he can rely on, he can kind of share his passions with, and not feel like, oh, now, you know, you're the big influencer, like, if people are walking on eggshells around him. But yeah, now, I mean, he's like any other person, just a human, and you know, you don't need to treat them that differently. And if anything, they don't want you to, like, they don't want you to just be like a fan. They're looking for genuine connections, right?
It's so funny because on this podcast, I've had a few opportunities to interview people with big followings, and I always treat them how I would treat my other guests, which is, if the goal is relationships and memories, if that's how I define success, then I'm not waiting for the amount of views, the amount of likes this podcast gets to determine successful. It's, did we create a relationship, and will this be a memory?
Right.
So a relationship isn't a one-time thing, and I don't call all 50 of my podcast members, but
right.
But I FaceTime people, and there's been guests who have lots of big followings, and I'll just FaceTime them, and they answer, and we're like friends now. And I'm like, dude, all I did was not treat them like this pedestal. But just so the audience has context, because I want them to be filled in, he has a little brother, Kelly Wakasa, you might know him, who is, I would say he's a really big time YouTuber now. And you've gotten to watch his life.
Yeah.
He's grown up, and that's an interesting perspective to have someone in your family that's famous. Has it opened your eyes to anything in your own career of like, damn, maybe I wouldn't want to be famous, or I should think about this? What have you learned?
Definitely. I mean, I've seen, you know, he handles it really, really well.
Yeah.
He loves his community. He loves the message. His message, do it excite.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really spread and, you know, touched people across the world. And so he's able to go and do these meetups in, you know, LA or New York or India, you know, wherever it is. He'll have a following, which for me, it's crazy. But I also saw how quickly he kind of got, not quickly, because it did take him a while to get up to where he is now. But now he's going to these big events with big time celebrities. Like, I don't think Kelly's like really, really famous yet. Like, he's still small in that sort of realm. But it's helped me realize these people are within reach, especially in social media. Like you said, you can just FaceTime them, you can reach out to them, you can get right into their inbox, you know, and not everyone's going to respond. But for me as an artist, I can hopefully use that to collab with bigger people and grow. Yeah. And that's exactly how he really, really started taking off, is when he started collabing with other creators.
So what's interesting about this, so I worked for a YouTuber named Marko, who he's very familiar with. Marko's probably the most famous artist on YouTube right now. There's a few things I learned when working with him. One was that before working with him, I had thought of him as a YouTuber who did art. I thought, this guy's a really good YouTuber who picked the niche of art and he's used it to thrive. When I worked with him, what I realized is, no. This guy is a world-class artist and he's a world-class YouTuber. And that's why he's so successful. I remember, because he makes custom shoes, the first time I ever went into his warehouse, he started hiding shoes from me. And I was like, this guy with 10 million subscribers, why is he hiding shoes from me? And it was because he cared so much about his art that if he didn't feel a piece was worthy, he didn't want it there to represent him. And I really respected that. But I think that another thing I learned when working with him, which I think you could really utilize if you're trying to grow a social media profile, is he has such a hack in the sense of three things. One is satisfaction. So in the book Atomic Habits, which is really popular, they say the most easy way to repeat a habit is to make it satisfying. And with art and the way you make art, you can make really satisfying watching videos where you want to watch them over and over again. Right. The second thing, though, is that it goes back to giving versus getting. when you're trying to get a collab as a smaller YouTuber, as a smaller podcaster, smaller musician, you can't really give you can't give the person above you that much. I mean, you can give them a good time. You can hope that you can make some good art together. But with Marko, he was able to get huge collabs because he's giving these people world-class art, whereas like they wouldn't be able to get it anywhere else.
Right.
He's adding so much value. And then the third thing is that on YouTube, we see stealing and copying everywhere. But if you're a good physical artist, people can't just copy that because you have to be a good physical artist.
True.
I don't know if there's a question here, but I just wanted to list those things out because
I mean, it's definitely, I mean, I got to collab with Marko on a piece and a nice video.
Yeah.
We worked together for about a week and a half together, just every single day, kind of like going over.
Yeah.
He came down to my studio. I went up to his, got to see his house, you know, and, you know, on top of just his talent, you know, he's a hard worker,
dude. He's the hardest worker.
You know, I was thinking you were gonna say he's also a scientist because he's not only like making art or whatever, he's experimenting on different things. You know, he just did a video where he's like, I'm gonna make these shoes to make me walk up a wall, you know, and he does it. You know, he accomplishes it, and that video is done within a week, and so it's kind of seeing that and how creative he can be, and that's why he's been so wildly successful, just through his creativity, through his generosity, and like you said, giving one-of-one art pieces that no one else can create to people, and because people, you know, the bigger people, the celebrities, they have the money, they have friends, they have you know, the clout, they don't need any of that. But they don't have a one-of-one piece by Marko, so...
Dude, I just got a rant about him for a second here because I always hear YouTubers talk about like, oh, I work these long hours, but looking at Marko, all he does, wake up, work every single day. To actually, from the perspective of soul wealth, I'd probably say it's too much work.
Yeah,
but,
honestly.
He works so hard. There was something else I wanted to say. This guy is literally a YouTube genius. He knows everything. I remember one time something that really blew my mind is we were talking about creating shorts. So posting a YouTube short, posting an Instagram reel, and posting a TikTok. And I was like, all right, we'll make a TikTok. We'll post it on all the platforms. And he was like, okay, for TikTok, make it 20 seconds. For Instagram, make it 50 seconds. And he knew it off the top of his head. He knew what time frame for each platform would perform the best. And I was like, bro, he just dropped it casually. I didn't even ask him. I was like, dude, it's crazy. This guy's insane. But then there is one thing that I think is interesting. So you've sold commission art. We're in your art pieces for sale behind us and in this warehouse. He had told me that he had not sold commission art, even though he wanted to, and I believe he had tried. And I had told you as well that when I first heard of him, but I hadn't known him, I thought of him as a YouTuber rather than an artist.
Right.
And I wonder, because I really believe that in 10 to 20 years, people are going to look at Marko, maybe not the same as Banksy, but I think that he will hold, every era has their artist. And I think in our social media era, he's going to be one of those people that they will look back
He's
on.
a legend. He's a legend. He's 21.
Dude.
And he's got 5 million subscribers. He's got over 100 videos. He's met... Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's met, you know, all these celebrities. Exactly.
But that's what. So I think that there's going to be a catch-up phase of people where right now anyone on YouTube, they are a YouTuber who does this, and I think it's going to change where so much of the population is going to be on YouTube that you are going to be whatever. You're going to be an artist who utilizes YouTube. You're going to be a podcaster who utilizes YouTuber. But I think it's interesting why he may have struggled to sell commission artwork. And like, I'm thinking about you possibly making artwork for bigger people or going down that route. Right. How that would play out for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've definitely watched his stuff, seen how he's grown, spoken with him personally, and kind of picked his brain on certain things, how to grow, how to, you know, what how to grow, but in your own way.
Yeah.
You know, obviously we have very different styles, and my work is much more commissionable.
Yeah.
If that's even a word. It's much more customizable, because people will see it, they understand the style immediately, and will be like, oh, well, I could see this working as a logo for this or whatever. He definitely has a different realm because he doesn't have one style. He kind of got bigger off the shoes, right?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of custom shoe artists. So his differentiating factor was through YouTube, through his personality, you know, and through these videos. And so that's why he could very easily now sell anything because he has such a good following. I think that's a much easier route than trying to force a product like I'm doing essentially, and trying to just sell it on to people.
I will say though, on top of his art being incredible, the way he edits is very artistic. That I think with the shoes, when he first started, he probably wasn't that much better than other shoe artists. But dude, I would just be so satisfied watching his videos because I can't even explain it other than just go watch a Marko video and see the edit. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. No, that's the end of it. You know, we were talking about Marko. And, no, he's a great YouTuber, great inspiration for art, YouTube, and business.
Have you ever thought about using your art, like your style, kind of like that, and just making stuff for other YouTubers and trying to grow that way?
Yeah, I have, and I want to continue doing that. I did a large project with Kelly and Ashley for their last place. I made them a few pieces each, and that was the largest growth I had on my Instagram, at least, and at YouTube, even though I don't really have a YouTube presence. But that was definitely the largest. And then Marko, collabing with Marko, again, there's a spike. And so it's a very clear growth, you know, and for anytime artists or other people ask me about it, I definitely say, yeah, you have to collab with people. That is the biggest way you're going to grow and actually start seeing the numbers. Like, it's just hard to rely on like your videos to go viral, versus if you collab with an artist who has 5 million followers on Instagram, you're for sure going to get a few of them. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, it's good.
Silence.
This is what Kelly would use.
This is a DJI.
I think so. He's got all sorts of equipment now.
You guys come from a soccer family, it sounds like.
Very much so. My older brother and I played at Cal Poly together. My youngest sister did. Cody, my older brother, went pro for 4 years.
Your older brother went pro?
He was pro for 4 years, and then he went to med school. So that's what Kelly and I have to live up to. Look up to.
Well,
so that's why we push hard and work hard.
Final question for you, a soul wealth perspective. Being the middle brother between a professional soccer player and a famous YouTuber, do you feel this pressure to live up to something? Appreciate the honesty.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think it's there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my parents are so supportive. Yeah. It's never been a competition to see who's going to be the best. We're all in this together. We're all a team, and we all try to help each other. And again, we're in such different industries. Yeah. Maybe that's why we didn't want to compete with each other. Yeah. But, you know, we're all just very happy for one another to see them succeed in whichever way they can. But of course, there's going to be a bit of a pressure there, or some sort of at least standard that you feel like, okay, I want to get there. I need to kind of get there. Otherwise, you know, I'm the least favorite child then.
That's interesting. Two things. The first thing is interesting, I think about, last night I watched your video and I saw Kelly had commented on a few. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, they're like on each other's team, which I think is really important as brothers. But then again, it goes back to how you define success, because you might feel, oh, like, damn, I'm underperforming my brother because we both played soccer and he went pro and I stopped. Or I'm underperforming my brother because he's made YouTube videos and I've made YouTube videos and his have millions of views and mine have none. But then if you go from wealth to soul wealth, you might say, all right, well, maybe I'm the happiest brother. Maybe I'm the most, maybe because Kelly now runs a team and he pays an editor and he has to hit a deadline every week. Maybe that actually gives him a bunch of stress and anxiety.
It does.
And maybe your brother who plays pro soccer has no free time because he's in med school and he's playing soccer.
Right.
And maybe you actually have the most time, location, freedom, and you are the most joyful, but now you've convinced yourself that you're the losing brother because of wealth metrics.
Right. No, it's
Which
very
is
true. You know, and that's that's how easy it is to get wrapped up with it, you know, and that's why I've been grateful that it's never been a competition really. And I've told this to people when they're struggling or in times of oh, you know, we're having some problems, I just don't know, you know, and it's like, you know, it's all about your own internal happiness. No one else can really make you happy. You know, it's all your own journey and finding happiness within you or joy within you in your daily habits or whatever you want to do. And I think that's how, you know, success is kind of tied in with the happiness part, where it's like, okay, well, if you're successful, you should be happy, right? But then what does successful mean? You know, is it money? Maybe to some, but, you know, there are a ton of different factors that play into it. So
is there any specific advice or tips that you felt helped you reach an internal happiness or like an outlook on life?
I mean, I think nothing in particular. I think it's been a combination of, you know, having the travels, having, you know, the freedom to be able to pursue a passion. And I think it's the daily habits, kind of like your, you know, the Atomic Habits book. It really does come down to those daily habits. You know, if you're drinking every day, it's going to add up and kind of come back and bite you in the butt one day. But if you're working a few hours every day on an art piece, you know, it's going to pay off in the end. And I think that has a direct correlation with success because, you know, it might not seem so obvious day by day, but you really are in it for the long haul and the journey. And I think being, you know, long-term goal oriented has helped me sort of stay motivated and focused and, you know, kind of stayed away from the distractions or like undistracted.
I think the lesson that I can pick out of what you just said is delayed gratification. We live in a world with so much instant gratification, whether that can be anything from alcohol to food, but mostly what I'm referring to is social media and scrolling. I think the more you can put your instant gratification and delayed gratification, so for you, it's like if that doesn't get on the wall without, you know, a month of work and I think why do people advocate so hard for working out as a cure for depression is because it's delayed gratification. I think that people experience a lot of anxiety because they believe that they want to be somewhere that they're not. So it's like, oh, I think that I should be a famous podcaster, but I can't have that in this moment. So I think another thing you pointed out is like removing yourself from the future is like you work on what you can do today. And
absolutely, I'm definitely a big advocate on living in the present. You know, and enjoying your life. I try to remind myself, you know, this is our only life. Every single day, you only get one. You know, and so can't be worried too much about the future. You can't be dwelling on the past too much, but just being in the present, but also having that sort of blind faith that, you know, if you do the right things in the present, those habits will add up in the end.
I think another thing that's been big for me and probably for you is I feel happier when I create more than I consume. So like in this world, it's so easy to consume food in the house, content, and especially fine with content that when I make more content than I consume, I just feel happier. So little for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's to each their own. You know, it's finding your own happiness somehow. Some people probably love to consume. Like, some are probably too addicted to it, but like, you know, there's people who will watch 2 to 3 movies a day because they just love film, you know, and if that's what makes them happy, then I'm happy for them, you know. I find that to be success for them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Interesting topic. It's right. I've never really gone in depth about this with anyone, so it's cool that, you know, we're doing this and you get to learn more about yourself and learn some new things. So
my podcast, I just make people rethink success over and over again. But I think
it's good.
It is a really important thing to do because you see these people. I could even say Marco's way more accomplished than me, and maybe Kelly's way more accomplished than me numerically and money wise, but it's always like the question that I always ask myself is why? What for? It's like I think when people choose this kind of career as an artist or like entrepreneur where it's hard to make it, it's like the reason you choose this career is because you want what you love to be what you do. So it's like you have this goal that, all right, I love art, I love soccer, I love podcasting. It's not that you idolize money and fame. It's like you want what you love to be your job.
Right.
But then so many people get to a point where what they love sustains them and they go, all right, I have 100,000 subscribers. I can make a living off this, but how do I get 1 million? And they get 1 million, they go, how do I get 10 million? And then they end up in a rat race. It's like, all right, what for?
Cycle, right.
What for?
Right.
The whole point was to have freedom, and now you're enslaved to a new system.
True.
And I always ask myself why, what for, and then we're gonna get into the final question of the day, which is interesting how you brought this up. I ask all my guests this question because it reverse engineers life and makes you think from the soul wealth perspective, which is when you die, what do you want people to say about you? And the reason for it is that almost no one ever on their deathbed will be like, I want to be remembered for hitting 1 million subscribers, or I want to be remembered for selling
being rich,
$10 million worth of artwork. They almost always say something for how they treated people. So it's interesting if you wake up and all your daily habits are for your work and your legacy, but then on your deathbed, you want to be remembered for how you treated people. You're living for the thing that you don't want to be remembered for.
Right. I think that's an interesting question because as much as it's like, well, I don't know. I don't care about what other people think about me that much or say about me. But how do I kind of want to be remembered, or like, you know, what do I want to feel at my deathbed? And sort of like feel accomplished for, and, you know, I'll definitely remember the moments of giving, you know, and impacting others. And I think that's a big part of what I want to be remembered for. You know, someone who, like you said, is spoken highly of, not for financial reasons or for, you know, numerical reasons, but for your character and how you've treated other people, how you've made an impact on this earth. And honestly, you know, be remembered in a positive light. You know, you don't want to be someone who's like, oh, I hated that guy. You know, you want to be someone who people really enjoyed every single time they were with. And whether that be, you know, just conversation wise, or they, you know, see some art that they really like and can resonate with that. And so that's, I think for me, what I want to be remembered by.
So, are you familiar with Yes Theory?
Yeah.
So they have their slogan, seek discomfort, and you could probably apply this to do what excites as well.
Sure.
And sometimes I think there's been times in my life where maybe there was a waterfall and I didn't want to jump in, but I thought back to that phrase. I was like, if this was Yes Theory, they would do it. So I'd be like, and literally I could replace this and do what excites. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, you jump in the water because like that brand has had an impact on you.
Yeah.
With your artwork, Wakasi, I think that's what the final name for your
Yeah,
brand.
that's the brand name.
What do you want it to stand for?
That's a good question.
Maybe you haven't answered this.
I actually really haven't, like, you know, because it's evolved, I guess, as I've grown and continued producing artwork. But, you know, I think when I look at the brand, I want to be remembered for, or just I want it to be about bringing more color into this world, kind of bringing more awe moments or inspiration into this world by creating things that haven't been created before, haven't really been seen. And honestly, the feedback I've gotten from people who have never met me or have seen my art has been spectacular. People are always in awe and just so interested to see it and kind of look a little closer at it, and sort of engulf themselves in it and kind of, you know, have that sort of distraction from all the stress and responsibilities of life. And that kind of goes with that feeling of, for me, like playing soccer, you forget about all your problems because you're just so focused and you're in your flow state. And I think that's what I want this art to reflect is, you know, wow, this is really cool. It's very different. And it's also really colorful, you know, in a grim world, especially at the moment.
Wow, that's a beautiful answer.
Thank you. That was not practiced.
I think we'll wrap it up there.
All right. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Could you sit here and do some thumbnail photos?
Yeah, absolutely.
Try not to actually sit on the edge and try not to get your knees, because then it will be in the cutout. Right.
How do you like to do it?
I need strike a few poses. Oh. Okay, we need separate cutouts.
Oh, right.
Yeah. All right, thank you, bro.
Of course. Nice meeting you.
Oh, nice meeting you. Thank you for taking the time here. I really appreciate it. Let's see how long we went for. 1 hour and 17.